Okay, so today we're going to be looking in more depth at masking. So I want you to make a new composition, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to call it masking. And it's 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to drag this movie down into the timeline. So it's always good to keep your project window tidy. So I'm going to click here and add a folder for comps and for movies. Oops. Okay, and I just tidy that up. Okay, so this is obviously way too small. So if I hit S and then just zoom that out, and now it's about the right size. So there's a little bit of black at the beginning of this, and I'm going to just cut that off. So I'll just get to the first frame of picture, and then I'm going to go to Edit, Split Layer. I'll delete, click on that, delete the first bit, and then drag this so it begins at 0. Okay, so now what I want to do is slow this down. So here under stretch, I'm going to just slow it down. If you can't see stretch in your columns, you click on this icon, go to columns, and select it from there. So I'm going to go, if you hold down shifts, you can kind of scroll faster. So I'm going to go to like 300-ish. Okay, so now I can just going to mask the first shot of this movement. Right, so what I want to do next is to add an adjustment layer, which is an invisible layer that you put over footage layers that will add effects to everything that's beneath it. So it's in Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, which is now here. So this is we're not going to work in this layer, we're working in the adjustment layer. So I want you to select the pen tool, and we're going to put a mask in this layer. So I'm going to just try not to put in too many points, and as you add points, you can slowly move these handles to kind of change the curves and take it slowly. And you'll find that when you have straight lines, you can just put a point at the beginning and the end. So it's not too bad. And now I'm going to go back to my arrow tool, and I can actually go in and move these points. So you might find that you have some points that don't have these handles on them. And if you go to your pen tool here, click on it, and you can select these different tools. And if you get to the Convert Vertex tool, if you click on that, it will add handles to it, so you can add a curve. You can also add vertexes, add these little points. So I could think, oh, I need an extra one here. And then I go back to my arrow tool, and then I can actually move that. If you want to see this line more clearly, you click on your adjustment layer, and if you press M, you can see your mask. And this is the color of my mask. So if I click on that, I can change the color. And it's easier to see. So now I've done this first mask. Oh, and what I meant to say was when you join the line, let me just undo what I've done. I'll just show you. So here, if I go back to my pen tool, when I get to the end of the mask, you can see you get a little link thing that appears. So when you click on that, it basically joins it as a shape. So then I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit. I'm going to add some handles to this one, make it look a bit better. Right, great. So now I'm going to make a keyframe for this path, this mask. So if I click here, and then as I move down the timeline, I can move my mask with the car. And what you can do is if you just double click on the whole mask, you see this square that appears around it, is I can actually move it all together. And then if I double click again, it's still all selected. So I need to click one more time to deselect it. And then you can just make little adjustments. Oops. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too long doing it. Oh, I'm going to change that color. Okay, that's easy to see. So you can see it just automatically puts in a keyframe for me. I'm just going to move that. And again here, it's starting to move. So I'm not going to change it too much, but you can do it better. Okay, right, so now I've done one mask. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add an effect here. So I'm going to go to Effect, Generate 4 color gradients. And then in the timeline here, you open up 4 color gradients, and where it says compositing options, you click on plus and mask 1. And what we want to do now is we want to use a blending mode. So I'm going to choose multiply. Okay, now what I want to do is add an effect to this part of the image. So I'm going to copy all of these keyframes and paste them and make exactly the same mask with the keyframes at exactly the same points, but I'm going to use it to have an inverse of the mask. So if I select all of these keyframes and then I just go Command C, and then I need to just click away from this layer, click back on the layer and Command V, and it pastes it in. And now I've got mask 2, which is also quite pale. So I'm going to click on that and change its color. Now I can see that better. And I'm going to add an effect to mask 2. So this time I'm going to go to Effect, Noise and Grain, Fractal Noise. And I'm going to just go to Fractal Noise here on the timeline and select Compositing Options Plus and choose Mask 2. And now what I want to do is go up to my Mask 2 here and click on the inverted box like this. And that way it does the inverse. In Fractal Noise, I can actually also add a blending mode. So I'm going to add Multiply. And now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of movement to my effects. So in my Fractal Noise, I'll put a keyframe in Evolution with a timeline marker at 0. I'll move down the timeline to the end, and I'm going to add 2 revolutions. So that means I've got a bit of movement. I can also reduce the opacity a tiny bit. And then I'm going to have a look at my 4 color gradients. And I'm going to open positions and colors and keyframe the colors. And then I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to change all of the colors. Okay, so you've got a little bit of movement. Okay, that looks nice. So now I'm going to add another mask, completely new mask around this wheel. And what you can do is you can actually zoom in. If you just click on the composition window and press Command plus, you can zoom in. I'm going to go back to my pen tool, this one, and I'm just going to click. Oh, I'll tell you why that happens. You need to make sure your adjustment layer is highlighted. So I'm going to click around here. I don't really want to click on the other mask, but I'm going to move the points. You'll notice that all the other effects disappear, but that's okay. And just move the points like that. Okay, and same again with mask 3. I'm going to just keyframe my mask path, and then I'm going to double click on this mask. See, that's automatically given me a new keyframe. I'll go to the end, double click again and move it to here. Okay, so now I want to add an effect into mask 3. So I go back to Effect, Channel, Minimax, and I need to go to Effects, and then I need to go to Minimax and Compositing Options plus Mask 3. So the other effects come back, and then I can just go on the radius. I don't want too much. That's nice. So basically, every time you add a mask, you can add a new effect. You can have more than one effect to a mask if that's what you want to do. And then I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to get to the end of this shot, press N. I'm going to save it. And then I'm just going to do Composition, Add to Render Queue. And then click on Lossless, Format Options, Apple ProRes 422, OK, OK. And I'm going to save it in my exports, masking, save, and render. And the wheel's looking kind of strange. Great. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project window, which is up on this arrow here. I am going to make a new composition and I'm going to call it text mask. So you need to make sure that it's 1920, 1080 and OK. So just always get in the habit of making sure your compositions have a name and that they're saved in the right place. So I'm going to go to my text tool here and I'm going to click on the window and I'm just going to write OK, and I want this to be bigger, so I'm going to just click on here, and then in the character window here, which you can also find under window, I'm going to just increase that size and bring this into the center. If you want to find the exact center, you can click on title action safe, and then you can kind of use this as your central point. And then if I click on S here on my text layer, I can also increase the scale. So Command minus, if this window's open, if you press Command minus, it actually, and Command plus zooms in and zooms out when you're working. So I want it to be something like that. That's cool. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to convert this piece of text into a mask. So if you go to Layer, you have to make sure this is highlighted. Layer, create masks from text. So it gives you a new layer, and this is my outline layer. And this one is now not visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, you can just click on M to show your mask. I'm going to click on my mask path. So I have a keyframe of how I want it to look when it's turned into the letter. And I'm going to kind of work backwards so it looks like it's appearing. So all you need to do is with your arrow tool, make sure you're not on your text tool. With your arrow tool is just, you can drag the points in. So it's going to look like it's appearing. So you can have it appear however you like. I'm just kind of having it appear from a central point. So obviously the more keyframes you have, depending on what the font is and what letter you've got, then it's going to be a bit more fiddly. But you can also zoom in, so you can use the magnify tool. You can just do Command plus to zoom in if that helps. So I'm just going to okay, so I'm also going to do like a fade in. So if I just click on T for opacity, and I'm going to bring that to 0, and then at like half a second, I'm going to bring it up to 100. And then I'm just going to zoom in because I can't really see what I'm doing. Okay, so if I want to see all my keyframes here, I just press U and it shows me opacity and all of these. And I'm actually going to kind of move these keyframes down a bit, like that. So when it opens now, it's kind of like that. Command minus, and I can see the whole frame. Okay, so I'm just going to hit N so that I'm only rendering the bit that I want to see. So if I just play that back, and it's kind of slow, so I'm going to make it a bit quicker. So if I just highlight all of my keyframes, all of my mask keyframes, and if I hold down Alt and then click on the last frame, I can drag them in and it keeps them all in proportion. So that looks nice. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is use this as a track map. And I'm going to go back and get my masking composition, and I'm going to drag that underneath this K outlines layer. And then go to my track map. If you can't see, if you can only see this, you need to click on toggles and switches so that it shows track map. I think I'm going to click here where it says none and go to alpha matte K outlines. And now it will show the car layer beneath this. And another thing that I could do is I could, if I go to this masking layer and press MM, M just shows you the mask, but if you do MM, it shows you the feather as well. So I'm going to add some feather. I'm going to keyframe it, so I'm going to whack it up quite high. And then as it gets closer to being the actual letter, I'm going to click on this here, and then I'm going to kind of bring it into focus. So bring this back down to 0. Like so. Maybe a bit like that. So that looks kind of nice. And then I'm going to render that and save it as another. The reason why you can see the mask here is because of this thing here. If I turn that off, then you can't see the mask. But when you're working, you obviously want to be able to see it. So yeah. Okay, and that's it. Great, thanks.